there's definitely a different perception of different people. It's why we get, really harsh opinions on people, right? That's why people get canceled.
In the beginning, I was operating on that one slice, and then I had sort of grabbed a few more slices from other experiences, and then I laminated those together and was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I got invited to this van for candy bars, and I was really excited about that until I got in the van, and then my perception changed.
It's not that I'm not feeling these things. It's just that I'm running them through a filter. I'm saying, is this appropriate for this moment? Should I control myself? Who are you? I think that one good answer is that you are what you just do. You are what you consistently do.
Yeah.
And that's really who you are.
Don't spread rumors, be optimistic, don't lie, just be a good person. Is it that really that difficult? Let's talk about perception. What do you think of when you hear perception, Brandon?
So I think I'm an eagle soaring across the sky, looking down with canyons and grasslands, and I'm making that sound. There's a famous thing where the sound the eagle makes is not actually from an eagle; it's from like a red-tailed hawk. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
That high-pitched
Yeah,
screech that
yeah.
sounch majestic.
I
It
feel
just
like
sounds
you're
like
just Bran now from Game of Thrones. Like you're
It
just
just
warging
yeah.
into a.
That's what it is. That's what I think of when I think of perception. Actually, Bran from Game of Thrones really that is an interesting point about the idea of perception as a whole. So
Yeah,
that's one of the things that just came to mind. Is that what we're talking about?
I think so. We are talking.
Okay.
Well, the thing is with perception is we've said this before. There's people that'll come out and say this is one of those things but when I first read it, it kind of blew my mind. And there's 1,000 different views of you out there from different people, right? That's the first thing I want to tell people is that everybody has little bits of you. They don't know all of you. And I could argue that even if you get married and live with somebody for 50 years, that they are not going to know all of you. There's just certain parts that people usually tend to keep to themselves or whatever it is. I think that's fine. I think that nobody should be 100% knowable to somebody else. I think that's what makes us human in a way. But we also have to understand that what we see is when we look at other people, we're seeing our version of them. So my version of somebody like Elon Musk is a person that we've talked about a lot. You have a much more positive version of Elon Musk in your head, but I also think that I let too many of the things he says aloud get to me and cloud my judgment, when in reality I know Starlink is great. I know there's a lot of things that he's doing. I know that these electronic cars, these self-driving cars, all of that stuff is great. But so yeah, there's definitely a different perception of different people and everybody, and that's why we get really harsh opinions on people, right? That's why people get canceled. There's so much goes into perception. I don't think people realize is that it's just so general of a term. Every perception of another person is filtered through our own experiences of that person, fears, desires, assumptions, all those things. And you're not observing someone objectively, you're constructing them, which is a good way to say it, right? The person you see is partly a projection and you're only seeing that one part. If you're getting that person on the bad day, you're not seeing that person for who they really are because, something else is affecting their mood or their acting. I'm trying to think of how many first time, have you ever met somebody for the first time, guy or girl, gargoyle, witch, wizard, whoever it may be, and were you super impressed with that person on the first ultimate meeting? Or you have met somebody like that? Can you explain that experience? You don't have to say the name or the person unless you want to, but can you explain that experience?
Well, I can say it in somewhat general terms, but I'm thinking of one person that I was a new employee of, and it was a boss, and it was a type of person where they were very outgoing, gregarious, nice, and very they were talkative, but they were I got great things going on, and you're going to like this job, and things are going to be going great here.
Well, that's even better if it's somebody, it's during an interview then is what you're talking about, right? Or
in a sense, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it an interview. It was more just we're meeting each other, but
Okay.
I already kind of have the job.
Gotcha.
Because I got it through a friend.
But that would be a
situation.
great time to have somebody with that personality, obviously, is if you know you're going to work for them.
Yeah. So I was gonna. I might be putting the cart before the horse here, assuming where you're going with this. But the point that I wanted to make is I have gotten a slice of this person that completely, and then I filled out the rest of the story in my head. And then after getting to know this person, I got to a point where that was not who they were. That, my perception of them had changed because in the beginning I was operating on that one slice, and then I had sort of grabbed a few more slices from other experiences, and then I laminated those together and was like, wait a minute, this thing I'm looking at is not,
So it's
it's
almost
not
like
what
a
I thought.
show, a little bit of a facade that he was putting on,
That's what
perhaps.
it felt like. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what it felt like. Yeah. So that's one example I'm thinking of that I had in that situation.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I got invited to this van for candy bars, and I was really excited about that until I got in the van, and then my perception changed. But honestly, I was trying to think of it. I'm glad you had a moment there. It was kind of you kind of threw a curveball though, because it was really like he wasn't that way. But I can't really think of any time I've had a first impression of somebody where I was super impressed, and I don't know if that just makes me like either I'm super cool or I just don't care. I'm assuming it's the second one. But yeah, I've never really I've definitely had I think that more people would say they've had bad first impressions, like more than anything. But also there's this thing where we have to do an episode about this one day where negativity just affects the brain way more than positivity does. So it just kind of stays in there and lingers. So sometimes you might forget about positive experiences. Or like you said, it's still amazing to me that you remember the initial experience because obviously after that it wasn't so great. And so you would almost think that the negativity would like in your brain would have drowned out the initial experience and you'd just been like, oh, this guy was like, but maybe it's like kind of still there because you're remembering like the falsehood of it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Perception is one of those things that just blows my mind because it's one of those things you can really get deep into and you can just pocket pussy that shit like real good. But it's not the thing about perception that I like the most is the fact that like you never get the whole version of somebody and I really do I almost like the guessing part. You'd be like you hear one thing about a person, like maybe it's a famous person or something, and then you start being like, oh, I wonder if he's this or this or this. And you hear that like, oh, this dude, like Jeff Bezos' ex-wife just gave what she's given a bunch of money away to like all these different charities and stuff. And you're like, oh, that sounds really great. But you don't, but that's all you're basing it off of. So you don't know anything else about his wife. But in the eyes of a lot of people, she looks better than him because she just keeps, that's the articles you keep reading about. And then all with Jeff Bezos, you just keep hearing about the Amazon horror stories or whatever. And you're like, okay. So, and I think that it can be unfair to people and it can be the opposite too. So, first impressions are so disproportionate, like as far as what we see with people. The primary effect means early information about a person anchors everything else that follows, which is a good way to say it. It's like you gather this little bit of information from 5-minute interaction, and now you're like, okay, you're coming to conclusions about who this person is. And that's not fair. And people have to realize that they're doing the same thing about you. It's like they're just like, oh, this is what he is. So, and then you become almost too much in your mind. You're like, because I've done that before where I'm interacting with people and then either during the interaction, I'm kind of being like, okay, am I being weird now? Like, am I doing these things? We talked about this a few weeks
Yeah.
ago in the dating thing with being creepy, like the objectiveness of creepiness.
Yeah.
Um, and so
Yeah.
and maybe we should have planned this, but it would be interesting to ask each of us what our perception of ourselves is, and then ask like 5 people who know us what their perception is of us. But what would you say about yourself that you think other people would perceive? Because there's a lot of things. There's also the point where we tend to think of all of our negative stuff. We go so negative, we'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't look right. I didn't shave today, whatever it is. And then we think that that's what people are thinking. But then what we don't realize is they're thinking the same exact shit. They're thinking about all their imperfections and they're not really like even paying attention to yours. So if I went to go out and ask 5 people that know you fairly well what their perception of you, and they all said a different thing, like what would you say that would be? Give me your perception on yourself.
Well, it's different for each person, as we've been talking about.
Mhm.
Like, I can think of 5 different people that I know for a fact have 5 different slices of me, different perceptions. And
Jeffrey
so
Dahmer. Let's think of the other 4
Yeah.
serial killers that have pieces of you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
He got the pinky
Ed
toe.
Gein, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I can try to aggregate those down. I can try to like find the commonalities between them. I think that, and I've had these conversations before. I think one of them would be like my temperament is I'm pretty even tempered. I'm not quick to be
Until we
like
release the behind the scenes.
overly excited or overly angry.
Yeah.
so I have a
You're
good
pretty
command
even
over.
keel. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think can on one hand is a good thing, but on the other hand,
Some
sometimes I
people might
feel
not
like
like that. Some people actually
yeah,
might not like. Yeah.
because some of it leads into me because I know how I feel inside, and I'm actually like a lot of times I'm feeling lots of really intense emotions on the inside.
Yeah.
It's not the thing is it's not that I'm not feeling these things. It's just that I'm running them through a filter. I'm saying, is this appropriate for this moment? Should I control myself? I think there's a healthy amount of control you should have, but you need to be careful because it could spill over into being oppressive. And I think that that's one of my things is where I can almost be oppressive with my emotions
Hmm.
around in an environment where I'm
Tell you
trying to
what, you're
suppress them.
impressive with your
Well, I
emotions.
appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Well, let's just wrap it up there. That's a
Yeah.
great pod. Thank you for listening. Some people might say that I'm good with computers. They strike me as a guy that is good with computers.
Yeah.
Some people might
I
mention,
call you when I got a
there
computer
we go.
problem. And then you're like, is it plugged in? And I'm like, damn it. And then I plug it in.
Yep. Yeah, and because of that, I think computers is a really easy one where if somebody's not real deep into computers and technology, that because of that, they'll have the perception of they might see me as smart,
Right.
even though I think computers is just a thing that people you either have experience with it or you don't, and that's
Yeah.
really the big decider. I think that you also have some people who know my music interests and
Yeah.
passions
Yeah.
might say some things related to that. It might
What are
be
some of your music interests? I mean, we've kind of talked about music on this channel before, but I don't know if we've ever specifically got some of your music interests. Like, I know that you're probably let me guess. Well, let's play a game right now. Here's my perception of what I think your music interest is. How about that? Probably some kind of alt rock. I guess that, probably what they would call, I don't know what they call guys I don't know what they call Was Green Day like alt rock, or back in the day, it was probably more modern rock, but now they classify it as
there was a big pop punk category that
okay.
they would
Yeah.
slot into. Yeah,
Are you a punk fan?
yeah, pop punk. I've been
Pop
a pop
punk?
punk fan since I was
Were
younger.
you
Yeah,
back in the day? Because I knew a guy who was like heavily into the Ramones. Were you like a big Ramones
no,
fan? No. So you weren't a
no.
big Ramones
The
fan.
early like foundations of punk, I was never that deep into. I really liked it when it got a little bit more produced and polished.
Right.
And that's not a popular thing to say. There was a time where that made me a poser,
Yeah.
but now
Yeah.
there's so much distance generated. Plus, there's like a resurgence in like the pop punk era of music right now,
Yeah.
especially with these big festivals like When We Were Young that happens in Las Vegas that just has like Blink-182 and like all these Simple Plan and like all these
Yeah.
like
Good
pop punk
Charlotte.
era
I
bands.
used to be a
Yeah,
huge
Good
Good
Charlotte.
Charlotte fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all those types of bands, but I was really big into them. That's not as a big of it's a big part of my DNA, but it's not big what I'm into nowadays. Now it's a little bit more it's stretched in all directions, but there is like a pop punk, but there's like an indie alt rock, and then there's a lot of electronic influences. I really like a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
electronic and like vibey music and a lot of modern like
Britney Spears. You watch
there you go.
you don't listen to Britney Spears, but you just watch her do her wild crazy dances on Instagram, I think. Like
Yep,
millions of other
I'm
Americans, and they're like,
I
"What the
select
fuck is going on?"
I have the browser attachment that replays the video automatically when it's
Excellent.
done,
Yeah.
so I can just go to
Cuz they're
bed
pretty
to it.
wild, man. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, they're pretty crazy. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So what
any
would
other
you?
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I want to bounce it back to you, or do you want to
Oh,
finish off talking about?
you're bouncing it,
Yeah,
man. All right, go ahead.
yeah, because
What are
I'm
you
I'm
gonna? Are
interested
you
in
just
yours
gonna
because
ask me
you
the
have
same thing about
you
perceptions?
have music interests too. So I think that it would be really interesting
Oh, right.
at this point in time to
Right,
share those.
but I did want to say really quick, are there any artists, because I feel like we are at a certain age where we're not really listening, or at least me, I'm not really listening to new artists. Are you listening to new artists? I'm not up to date on who's I'm late to the party usually with that.
Yeah, I do listen to new artists, but it's not through who's breaking through. It's more through Spotify. Trick that I do oftentimes is I go to a song that I like and then I click the option for go to radio. And so it builds an automatic selection of songs based on that one song.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's oftentimes how I discover new music is because then it'll go through the songs, it'll shuffle them, and then I'll get a song in there that sounds really good that I really enjoy, but it's by somebody I've never heard it before, and it's
Yeah.
by somebody oftentimes who's new. It's like the song came out like 2 years ago, and so I discover new music primarily through methods like that.
Yeah, I don't discover a lot of new music. When I'm listening, well, I don't use Spotify, but I use Amazon Music, but I'm usually just listening to podcasts. Um, So I stick to a lot of the old stuff, and mainly if I'm gonna be listening to music, I'm probably gonna be watching it on YouTube. And I mean, I'm gonna do your typical white guy stuff in here and be like, I fucking love Eminem. Eminem, I'll go to the grave saying he's the best lyricist ever. And then I like the old stuff now. Now I'm getting back into the old stuff. I'm like, I love 90s music, and so that's probably more me. I mean, I do like hip hop, so and I like classical hip hop. I guess they'd probably consider it classical now. I don't know. But like, 80s and 90s hip hop, I'll listen to NWA. You put on a Biggie song or a Tupac song or early Jay-Z. You've got Bone Thugs and Harmony back then. You've got Big Pun. You've got so many people that were big back then, like Easy E. I don't know. Just the golden days because that's the time we grew up, right? So I'm going to remember a lot of that. So yeah, I'm more like the old school stuff. Like, not much of the new stuff. I did just hear, I will say this, like stuff in the 2000s, like they're still there. I love women who have that natural, just natural, lovely. There's women that I've heard sing that give me like almost goosebumps. Like, and that is amazing to me. And I will say that no guy has ever done that. I don't know if that's just it sounds kind of weird saying it that. No guy's ever given me goosebumps. But except for the book one time. But I would say that because Colby, what's her name? I don't know if it's Calette or Calais, but Colby Calais. I call her Calais. It might be Calette. But there's a song on there. I really liked Amy Winehouse had one of those voices. Unfortunately, for her didn't work out there. She became part
Yeah.
of the 27 Club. But yeah, there's people like that. Whitney, I would say Whitney had a great voice, until she decided to take a bath. So stuff like that is just, how what I like. Good big piping voices. And I love we had talked about this before, but I love lyrical content. I love when it's good lyrics. And I think that maybe you like I mean, I like a good beat and stuff too, but I think maybe we had discussed before how you kind of go more towards the beat than lyrics, maybe. I don't know. But
And when you say the beat specifically, I would even hone down on that and say the melody.
yeah, I
Yeah, I'm
love a good
really big
melody.
on
I love a good
yeah.
piano. I love a good guitar strum or if it's I like a good sometimes there's like a good riff, like an electric guitar is like riffing good. I like all that shit. But yeah, melody is definitely drum beat is like that really doesn't matter unless you are probably talking about hip hop because then it gets a little bit more like you get some of those double time beats and
Yeah.
they're kind of cool.
And to be fair, I think the like drum beat is underappreciated a lot of times. There's a lot of one of my favorite bands growing up when I was younger was Blink-182,
Yeah.
and they are I think the only thing that set them apart from being an average run of the mill pop punk band was Travis Barker, their drummer. They
Yeah.
had songwriters and they were able to get I think I'm going to caveat that. I'm going to say two things set them apart. I'm going to say the first one was Travis Barker, the drummer, just multi-talented and was able to incorporate multiple different styles into what would have been just a simple pop punk band.
Yeah.
And so that helped, that diversified them and added legitimacy and made their songs really pop. And then the second one I think is production quality. I think that they were not beholden to any idea of like trying to be a garage band. So as soon as they were capable of improving their production quality, they would go into the studio and they would spend hours on making these songs sound as polished as possible. And so when they came out these records like Enema of the State and it blew up for Blink-182, it's because the production quality was just like a cut above all the other, even Green Day's production quality at that point hadn't reached what Enema of the State sounded like in terms of just like the glitter on the record. You were hearing everything clearly.
Yeah. Don't waste your time on me, cause I'm
Yeah.
already a voice in your head. Is that what I don't remember.
Yeah.
Who do you like better, Green Day or Blink overall?
Blink-182.
Really?
Oh, Blink-182 for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'd actually have to think about it because I do like them both, but I'm not sure who I like. But yeah. So I guess that's our perception on some of our own music. But yeah, I mean, people see a version of you that you'll never have access to, which is kind of crazy to think about. You can never stand outside yourself and observe how you come across, your voice, energy, micro expressions, body language. Probably because we're actually inside. We're thinking about all the bad. Like we're like, are we doing this right? So we never know. Although I do think that there's people out there that have a better grasp on it than others. Like they just
Yeah.
kind of know. Yeah, and then others carry an image of you that is fundamentally invisible, which is kind of humbling and liberating, I guess. But and then there's the spotlight effect. It makes us overestimate how closely we're being watched. Which you could say this about anything. Those people out there, they're like, oh God. I like those people that are
Yeah.
like online and they'll be like, my neighbor's got a camera pointed that way. Should I worry? And everybody's like,
Yeah.
no, not unless you're like. But research consistently shows people believe others notice their mistakes, appearance, and awkwardness for more than they actually do. And most people are too preoccupied with their own internal spotlight to train it on you for very long. So that's something to understand. We perform for imagined audiences. I do this all the time when I'm home
Yeah.
alone. I perform. Sociologist Irving Goffman, love this name, argued that all social life is kind of theater. We're constantly managing impressions, playing roles, and adjusting our performances depending on who's watching. So the unsettling question is which performance, if any, is the real you? And this is really crazy. This is a blow your mind thing. If people really think about this for a minute, it kind of blows up your mind a little bit because we do this in relationships. We talked about the fake part of being fake in the beginning of a relationship, and we tone down our rhetoric depending on the person we're with, or we tone it up, or if this person we know doesn't like this certain thing, we won't talk about that certain thing. So we do this all the time, right? With everybody. We're
Yeah.
giving them a different impression and they're giving us a different impression. So how much does that blow your mind, Brandon?
It blows it a lot.
Does it blow it
10
a
out of
lot?
10.
Ultimate blow,
Yeah.
double blow,
The ultimate blow. I think
death
that
blow.
what's
It's the
interesting.
death blow. Okay.
Yeah. I was shooting back as I was falling, and it was cool. So was that the wrong one, or was that a different one?
No, I think it was right.
Death blow. Yeah.
People aren't even going to know. That's Seinfeld reference, people. Just know that mainly we're talking about Seinfeld when we do these references.
So there's things that I think about when it comes to these perceptions, like what we're talking about right now, and it's that people don't like the idea of authenticity is a little bit weird to me sometimes, especially when it relates. So I've had a hard time dealing with self growth, and I think a lot of people deal with this, where it's like,
pimples.
how do you grow
Right.
and take on a new behavior without being fake? Because it's like you are like, who are you? I think that one good answer is that you are what you just do. You are what you consistently do,
Yeah.
and that's really who you are.
Yeah.
So if you've been doing this thing and then you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to do this thing, and you change, people around you are saying like, you're kind of like being fake right now, like you're not really being you, like this isn't you.
Right.
And so, like, how do you grow? Like, does everybody just want to keep you in a little box? What they're really keeping you in is just their perception of you. They don't like that perception. They don't want that to change too much. And I think that it is kind of mind blowing, the idea of like, what is it? Like, who are you outside of you? Because you have your perception of yourself, you have the perception that they have of you, and then the perception that you have that they have of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're trying to marry all these things together. So yeah, I just think this idea as well of like what it means to be you and what it means to be authentic, and also like how does that play with the idea of growth. And I've eventually gotten to the bottom where like I don't think it really matters anymore. I think that you are like, you can choose who you want to be at any moment, and I think you should decide what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, what is better for your life, and also what's better for the lives of the people around you.
Yeah.
Is it better for you to be this person or to be this person? I think, and the admiral, is that the word? The admiral thing?
Yeah, the admiral thing to do. Yeah, it does kind of sound weird though, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I feel like I'm like a ship captain when I say that.
Yeah.
So
The admirable.
yeah,
We're both wrong.
I knew it. I was
Hey,
like,
I've been smoking weed for the last hour.
Am I buying cheap bottom shelf liquor, or am I trying to make a point?
Yeah.
And the admirable thing, I think, is to be the thing that is most beneficial to you and the people around you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think you should try to shoot for, and not try to be too dogmatic about being any one person that is the same as who you've been, or trying to grow into a person that you think you're supposed to be, but that might not even be the person that you actually are supposed to be. So there, we'll go on. I had another point, but I'll save it here.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say it's crazy that, first of all, like there's people that talk about celebrity. Like, think about how much amplified this is if you're famous. So now you've got millions of different perspectives of you or perceptions of you. And it's amazing to me that we as human beings are so quick to judge other people, even though we're going through the same damn thing. You know, like people are doing the same thing to us, but it's just like a never-ending circle. But get to your point. Tell me about your point.
Well, I mean, there's 2 points, because I just thought of one while you were talking, which is that, like, how many times how many times during this podcast have you made a point, and then when I'm making a point, you allocate 5% of your brain to quickly go over and edit the point you just made to just be like, did that perception, did I say that okay? Like, I
Yeah.
say that all the time. How many words did I just mess up?
Right.
I mess up, a word probably every 2 minutes,
It's very
and I make points.
admirable of you, though, to
Yeah,
do it,
yeah.
to point it out.
And 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 it's also admiral if I mess up a lot of words and I start slurring them. It
Yeah.
also might be admiral. So I'm talking about Admiral Nelson, by the way, which is like Captain Morgan knockoff,
Oh, like
like liquor. Yeah.
like you're talking like King Cobra, Old English kind of
There's a
shit.
bottle that called Admiral Nelson that you can, if money's tight, you can grab.
Gotcha. Excellent. Good to know for all the alcoholics out there that wanna get more alcohol.
Yeah. So the other point I want to make is that you might not know your own perception.
Yeah.
Like, you think you know it, but even if somebody had filmed you and put a camera on you, you might have a conversation with somebody, and then you might watch it back, and you might say, "Oh, I wasn't portraying any of the things. I wasn't like even my perception of myself has changed."
Yeah.
Because I'm like way different. Like, maybe my body language is way more slouched than I thought it was. And what does that mean? That means that you thought you were being confident, but you're looking at yourself, you're like, I don't look confident at all. I look like I'm slouched, and you can see from my body language. And also verbal cues. I think that
I
it's
was
really easy.
naked.
That's right. I was naked.
Probably should have wore clothes. Yeah.
I was in the pool. So you don't see the nose in front of your face. This is a common thing that I think a lot of people know,
Right.
but
You do
you
if you
can
close
always
one
see
eye
it.
a little
There,
bit.
there
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. So you can see it, but you tune it out because your brain sees it every minute of every day when your
Right.
eyes are open.
Right.
So you learn to tune it out. And I think that we do that with things like vocal pausers. And I've thought about this a lot more since we've been podcasting, where I'm saying, how many times do I say the word like?
Yeah.
And like, I say these things all the time. I try not to think about it too much, but I do. And then if I watch a playback, it becomes apparent to me how many times I'm using these filler words.
Yeah.
And I think that's another part of perception, that it's like you can overlook little things that you're so used to. You don't realize you're doing these things. Some people might have facial tics and twitches. I have sometimes where I watch myself back and I'm like, oh man, I was doing like a weird tick right there, and I don't like it.
Right.
And then going one layer deeper, which was the point that I wanted to make, is that I was going to say that you don't have control over how other people are perceiving you, really, but you can at least control your intent for what you're saying. Like, you know what you mean to say.
Right.
But I think that psychology would even differ from that. I think sometimes you don't even realize the intent you have. I think that sometimes you could be talking to somebody that you have a chip on your shoulder you don't like, and you're saying something that you think actually is a good statement, but you're not even being truthful to yourself and realizing that you're kind of making like a backhanded compliment. Like, you want to tear them down, but you're not even admitting it to yourself that that's kind of what you meant to do. Like,
Right.
oh, that dress that's a cool dress. Like, you wore that yesterday too, right? Like, I think I saw you wearing that yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're like, no, I'm just saying I saw it before. Like, that's it. Like,
Right.
I don't mean anything by it. But it's like, even your intent somewhere buried inside you is like, I kind of want to rip this person down. And so that's another example of perception where you might just have a slice of yourself even that isn't
Yeah.
even the whole picture.
Self-mutilation. Yeah.
What can we do about that? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. And it is crazy because perception is like, it's shaped by what we need people to be. Like, it's not really like shaped by what they are. It's like we often cast people in roles that like serve out our psychological needs. The villain who explains our failures, the hero who validates our choices, the mirror who reflects our own values back at us. Seeing someone as they actually are requires releasing the role you've assigned them. So you've got to kind of go with a blank slate and say, okay, well, this person, and that's really hard to do. I remember that it's always fascinating me when you're watching a courtroom trial and something gets said and then they say objection and then the judge says sustained, remove that from the record. And now as a juror, if you're a juror, you're supposed to take that and just get rid of it. But it never fucking goes away. And I've heard jurors talking about this, like after trials, like how hard it is for them to be like, oh, we've got to get rid of that. But you can't, like, it's already been said. It's there. You've heard it. And it was and if the other lawyer is objecting to it, it's apparently something that's pretty significant. So that I kind of I think about that in that sense where it's like, you can't just, if you've prerequisited someone into a category, it's going to be super hard to take them out of there no matter what you think. So that's just another interesting thing about perception. The gap between intention and impact is where most relational pain lives. So you know your intentions, others only see your actions, and this is kind of like what you were talking about. The asymmetry. Wow, man, I can't even talk. We are just
Admiral.
talking about this asymmetry creates endless misunderstanding. This asymmetry creates endless misunderstanding. Someone hurt by you can't access your internal justification, and you can't fully feel the impact you left behind. So we are just playing a game. Nobody's ever going to know everybody. Like, the thing is, do we even know ourselves? 100%. I don't even think we do. You were just talking about how sometimes
Yeah.
we can think about these things and think it's one way, but it's not. So it's really crazy. But being truly seen is one of the deepest human hungers. People want to get noticed. People, I mean, even I'm a kind of guy who likes to be alone. I spend most of my time alone, but definitely yearn for those times to be seen, be heard, whatever. I think every human being has that. Not agreed with, not admired, just accurately perceived. Most people move through life feeling at least partially misunderstood. And I mean, that happens a lot. And like I said, it's got to be tough to be a famous person or a politician, even. I mean, we give politicians a hard enough time, and I'll be right up there with anybody else, talking bad about what I don't like about them or what they're doing, but we don't even know them to the full extent. So we just don't know. And, when someone really sees you, your contradictions, your context, your full complexity, it all can feel startling and even threatening because most of us aren't used to it. Like if somebody's like starting to notice things about you, you're going to be like, holy shit, bro. Like that, then it's almost detrimental to you because then you're just going to be in your head more. You're going to be like, oh God, well, what did I do to, say that? But, changing how others see you is slow. And it takes far longer to revise perception than it did, to form one. You can act against type for months and people will still interpret your behavior through old lens. Reputation has real inertia. And so I remember like when I was working, I felt like I was always like the guy that people wanted to work with because I was always keeping it lighthearted. I was trying to be funny. I was trying to make people laugh, make the job more enjoyable, whether I was a boss or just a fellow employee. I worked at Arby's and I worked with a girl at Arby's who told me one time, and it made me feel really good. She's like, I only want to work when you're working. And I just like that, like, and those are the kind of things that you want to hear. You're like, oh, that makes me really feel good. I'm not going to change
Yeah.
my schedule around for you, but it makes me feel good, and, hopefully you have a good time when I'm here. But, I've also had people that I felt like really liked me for who I was. And then later on, like, I know they've kind of moved on or they'll move out of the state. And here's what I don't like is when like, it's like you're just because you're not around or they're not around anymore, like all of a sudden you're kind of nothing, like they ignore you. Now I know a lot of them, like some of them have been women that have gone on to have relationships and get married and have kids. And I do understand that there is kind of that stigma where a lot of women won't talk to other guys just because they don't want like their husband to think or whatever. So I get that. But yeah, perception, it's crazy to me. And the way you see others really kind of reveals yourself. It kind of tells you it's going to tell people a lot about yourself, what you notice in people, what you judge, what you admire. These are all data points about your own psychology. So perception is as much autobiography as observation. So yeah, I think that I encourage people to do kind of what we've been doing, and I encourage people to write down maybe 5 things of how they perceive themselves, and then go around and ask people and tell them to try to answer honestly, and hopefully they will. And kind of get a better idea, and maybe that will help you'll be more within yourself and you'll think about it. You'll be less in here, but you'll understand that everybody's going to be different, and to try not to judge right away, and that's such a human instinct, right? Judgment. I feel like it's so crazy
Yeah.
because people are always like, no, you can't judge. Only God judges. And you're like, well, it's
Yeah.
it's instinctual for people to do it. And it's crazy because you can't tell me that there's probably been ever one person alive that's ever not judged somebody. Unless it was like a baby that had an unfortunate accident. They didn't have time to judge somebody. But you know what I mean? Like you just
Yeah.
can't tell me that people don't act that way. Any final thoughts or words on perception, Brandon?
You can only control, there's only a few things that are within your control. And I think that the most important thing to start with is your intent. I think that's the core. And I think that's also coupled with understanding yourself. So I would say really try to understand yourself and what makes you tick at your core, and then control your intent, and then try to have an intent that is good for other people and good for yourself. And because those are the things that are within your control. And then to some point, you can go to another layer on the onion and say, I'm going to try to control a little bit of like how I'm emitting my intentions.
Yeah.
But then, so you can send, you can throw a little paper airplane out into the world and you can control how you let it go. But then after that, you let it go and it flies where it flies and the wind blows where it blows. And that, that's something I'm sure we all struggle with, that I struggle with, which is like moving on from that and truly letting that go and saying like, if the wind takes it and it pokes somebody in the eye, I don't think you can, you can't take that to heart. Like, so that's just somebody, the analogy there, I think, is you had a good intention, but somebody else just, for whatever reason, their upbringing, they saw what you did through a lens that was negative for them. And you can't always control that. You can try to be as accommodating as possible, but you don't want to dwell on it. You want to move on and not let it stop your growth. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing. It is interesting to me because there could be somebody, because there's that whole like kill him with kindness. There could be somebody who's going to like go up to somebody and they have intentions of being angry, but that other person's mood or temperament or the way they react to it could totally change the way they respond too, which is kind of interesting. And I'm also saying this in the fact that like I can be an angry person, I get irritable easily, but I'm not going to jump down on your throat on anything we say on here for a couple of reasons. For first, because you don't deserve it. And second, I think your temperament kind of helps me maintain my temperament and maybe vice versa, And so that's interesting
Yeah.
too. When people get together, they could start mimicking, those kind of things. But yeah, that's perception. I encourage everybody to look at yourself and just really, do a deep dive and maybe kind of question yourself a little bit on how you see other people because sometimes it's not fair. And even though it's in your own mind, where it really becomes unfair is when the rumors start spreading, right? Don't spread rumors, be optimistic, don't lie, stuff like that. I guess, all the religiously things, just be a good person. Is it that really that difficult? Be a good person. That's it.